The room fell silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward me. My own son pointed his finger and whispered, "Mom, where's your phone?" It was my 68th birthday. The house was full of family. Just minutes earlier, everyone had been laughing. Now, they looked at me like I was the problem. Someone accused the waiter. Another demanded the police be called. My daughter-in-law stepped forward with tears in her eyes. "I just want the truth," she said. Everyone believed her. No one believed me. But I noticed one tiny mistake. A mistake no one else saw. And in that moment, I knew exactly who had stolen my phone. The only question was, would my own family believe the truth before it was too late? The birthday that turned into a nightmare. I wish I could tell you that my 68th birthday was filled with love. Instead, it became the day my own family stopped trusting me. That morning, I woke up before sunrise. I baked my famous apple pie, roasted a turkey, made homemade rolls, prepared every dish my family loved. My house smelled like cinnamon, fresh bread, and warm memories. I smiled as I placed my late husband's photograph on the fireplace. "George, I hope you'd be proud." One by one. My family arrived. My son, Daniel, gave me a quick hug. "Happy birthday, Mom." My daughter-in-law, Melissa, walked in carrying an expensive gift bag. She smiled warmly. "Today is all about you." At least, that's what she wanted everyone to believe. My grandchildren filled the house with laughter. Music played softly. The dining table was full. For a few beautiful hours, everything felt perfect. Then, after dinner, my granddaughter asked, "Grandma, let's take a family picture." Everyone gathered in the living room. I reached into my purse for my phone. It wasn't there. I smiled nervously. I must have left it in the kitchen. I searched the kitchen. Nothing. The bedroom, nothing. The dining room, nothing. A strange feeling settled in my chest. My phone is missing. The room suddenly became quiet. Daniel frowned. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "I had it just a few minutes ago." Melissa immediately looked toward the waiter we had hired for the party. A young college student named Ethan. He had been serving drinks all evening. She crossed her arms. "He was walking around the house." "It had to be him." The poor young man looked shocked. "Whoa, what?" "I didn't take anything." But no one listened. The accusations came one after another. "Check his pockets. Search his bag. Call the police." I looked at Ethan. His hands were shaking. Fear filled his eyes. Something didn't feel right, not because my phone was gone, but because Melissa was trying too hard to convince everyone the waiter was guilty. Then, for just a second, I noticed something. Melissa quietly slipped her hand into her designer handbag, as if checking whether something was still inside. She thought no one saw her, but I did. And at that very moment, a tiny voice inside my heart whispered, "The real thief is standing right here." The secret. I couldn't ignore. I stood there, watching everyone surround the waiter. Poor Ethan looked terrified. His hands trembled. I swear, I didn't steal anything. No one listened. Melissa folded her arms. "If he's innocent, he won't mind us checking his bag." The room filled with whispers. My son, Daniel, sighed. "I'm sorry, Ethan, but we have to know the truth." Ethan slowly handed over his backpack. Everyone searched it. Nothing. Not a single thing. No phone, no wallet. Nothing suspicious. For a brief moment, the room became silent. I expected someone to apologize. Instead, Melissa spoke again. "He probably hid it somewhere else." I looked at her. She wasn't trying to find my phone. She was trying to make sure everyone kept looking at Ethan. That was when I noticed another strange detail. Melissa never let go of her designer handbag. Not once. She carried it into the kitchen, into the living room, even when we sat down to eat. She kept it on her shoulder. It was unlike her. She usually left her purse on the hallway table. Always. Something wasn't right. I quietly walked back into the kitchen, trying to think. Then I remembered something. My phone had a family sharing location app. If it was still turned on, I might be able to find it. I picked up my old tablet from the bedroom. My hands shook as I entered my password. The screen loaded. Then a small blue dot appeared. I held my breath. The phone wasn't outside. It wasn't in the garden. It wasn't in Ethan's car. It was still inside my house. I slowly zoomed in. The location moved, very slightly, as if someone inside the living room was carrying it. My heart started pounding. I quietly walked toward the hallway. No one noticed me. Everyone was still arguing with Ethan. Then I heard a faint sound. Buzz. Buzz. A vibration. Soft. Almost impossible to hear. It came from only a few feet away. I looked up. Melissa was standing by the window, smiling, comforting everyone, but her handbag had just vibrated. I froze. She quickly pressed the side of the bag with her hand, as if trying to stop the sound. She looked around nervously. Then our eyes met. For just 1 second, the smile disappeared from her face. She knew. I had heard it, but I wasn't ready to accuse her. Not yet. If Melissa really had my phone, I needed proof, real proof. Because if I was wrong, I wouldn't just lose my phone. I'd lose my family forever. So I made a decision. I smiled, pretended I suspected nothing, and secretly reached for another phone. I was about to set a trap. One that the real thief would never see coming. The trap. I took a slow, deep breath. No one could know what I was about to do. If Melissa was innocent, I would owe her an apology. But if she was guilty, she was about to expose herself. I quietly walked into my bedroom, closed the door, and picked up my old cell phone. My hands were shaking, not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't believe. I was investigating someone from my own family. I opened my contacts, called my missing phone, then I quietly walked back into the hallway. The ringtone echoed through the house. Everyone froze. Melissa looked around nervously. The sound stopped almost immediately. She had declined the call. Too quickly. Too perfectly. She forced a smile. Maybe the battery died. I looked into her eyes. No, it didn't. For the first time that evening, Melissa looked worried. I smiled politely. I have another idea. I turned toward everyone. My phone has a tracking app. It says it's still inside this house. The room became silent. Daniel frowned. Are you sure? I slowly nodded. Very sure. Melissa laughed nervously. Technology makes mistakes. I calmly replied, sometimes. But not tonight. I watched her carefully. A tiny drop of sweat rolled down her forehead. She crossed her arms, then quietly moved her handbag behind her back. She thought no one noticed. I did. The police arrived a few minutes later. One officer asked gently, Ma'am, would you like us to search the house? Yes, he nodded, then looked at everyone. To be fair, we'll need permission to check everyone's belongings. Nobody objected. My son handed over his jacket. My grandchildren handed over their backpacks. Even poor Ethan, the waiter. Everyone had blamed. Opened his bag without hesitation. Nothing. The officer thanked him. Then he turned toward Melissa. Ma'am, may I see your handbag? Melissa's smile disappeared. She hugged the bag tightly. My personal things are in here. The officer remained calm. This will only take a moment. She looked at Daniel. Tell him no. Daniel looked confused. Melissa, if you didn't take it, just let him check. She didn't move. The room grew painfully quiet. Then, without warning, a familiar ringtone filled the house. Ring, ring, ring. Every single person turned toward Melissa. The sound was coming from inside her handbag. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The officer slowly reached for the zipper. Melissa suddenly stepped backward. "Don't touch my bag." At that exact moment, I knew. The nightmare that had destroyed my birthday was finally about to end. But what the officer pulled out of that handbag left my entire family in complete shock. The truth. No one expected. The entire room stood frozen. No one breathed. No one spoke. The police officer slowly unzipped Melissa's handbag. She tried to pull it back. "Please, don't." But it was too late. The officer reached inside. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then he slowly pulled out my phone. The room fell into complete silence. My son, Daniel, stared at the phone, then at his wife. His face turned pale. "Melissa, tell me this isn't what it looks like." She couldn't answer. The officer unlocked the phone. The wallpaper appeared, a picture of me, holding my grandchildren on Christmas morning. There was no doubt. It was mine. Daniel stepped backward. "You blamed an innocent man." His voice cracked. "You let everyone accuse Ethan." Melissa finally whispered, "I can explain." But no one wanted excuses anymore. The young waiter, Ethan, still stood quietly near the front door. His eyes were filled with tears. He had spent the last hour believing his future was over. One false accusation could have cost him his college job, his reputation, everything. I slowly walked toward him. "I'm so sorry. I should have stopped this sooner." Ethan gently smiled. "You believed me. That's enough." Those words broke my heart. I turned back toward Melissa. "Why? Why would you do this?" She looked down at the floor. Tears rolled down her face. "I wasn't trying to steal it forever. I needed your phone." The room looked at her in confusion. She continued, "I knew you had recordings, pictures, and documents. I was afraid you would discover what I'd been hiding." Daniel frowned. "What are you talking about?" Melissa took a deep breath, then quietly admitted, "I've been secretly taking money from our family savings account." The room exploded with shock. Daniel's hands began shaking. No, that's impossible." She nodded through tears. "It started with small amounts. I thought I'd pay it back, but the debt kept growing. When I realized your mother still had the banking app on her phone, I panicked. So I took it and blamed the waiter." Daniel closed his eyes. The woman he trusted most had framed an innocent young man and betrayed his own mother. The police officer calmly stepped forward. "Melissa, you are under arrest for theft and filing a false accusation." He gently placed handcuffs around her wrists. No one celebrated. No one smiled. Because sometimes the hardest truth is discovering that the person who hurt you was someone you loved. As the officer led Melissa toward the front door, she turned back one last time. Her eyes met mine. "I'm sorry. I never wanted it to end like this." I quietly replied, "Neither did I." The front door closed behind her. The house became silent once again. But the night wasn't over. A few moments later, my son slowly walked toward me. Tears filled his eyes. He fell to his knees and said words I never thought I would hear. "Mom, can you ever forgive me?" A son's regret. The front door closed. The police car disappeared down the street. For the first time, all evening, the house was completely silent. No music, no laughter, no birthday celebration, only regret. Daniel stood in the middle of the living room. His eyes were fixed on the floor. He looked like a man who had suddenly realized he had broken the heart of the one person who had never stopped loving him. Slowly, he walked toward me. His shoulders were shaking. "Mom," his voice cracked, "I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you. I let everyone accuse an innocent man. And worst of all, I doubted my own mother." I looked into his eyes. For the first time that night, I saw my little boy again, not the grown man, not the husband, just my son. The little boy who used to run into my arms after every nightmare. Tears filled his eyes. I failed you. I failed Ethan. I failed this family. I gently placed my hand on his shoulder. Daniel, we all make mistakes, but real character is what we do after we make them. He couldn't stop crying. I don't know how to fix this. I quietly smiled. Then start with the truth. Without another word, Daniel turned toward Ethan. The young waiter was still standing near the doorway. He looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to disappear. Daniel walked over to him. Then, to everyone's surprise, he held out his hand. I'm sorry. No, I'm more than sorry. I judged you without proof. I let my emotions control me. I hope one day you can forgive me. Ethan looked at him for a moment, then slowly shook his hand. I already have. Those 4 words changed the room. The tension disappeared. Even the police officer smiled. Daniel then reached into his wallet. He handed Ethan a generous check. This isn't payment for your silence. It's an apology. You deserved respect, and we gave you suspicion. Ethan looked at the check, then looked back at Daniel. You don't have to do this. Daniel nodded. I do. Because doing the right thing should never depend on how embarrassed we feel. Everyone in the room lowered their heads. That sentence was meant for all of us. As the guests quietly began leaving, one elderly neighbor stopped beside me. She gently squeezed my hand. You raised a good son. He lost his way tonight, but you just helped him find it again. I smiled through my tears. Maybe she was right, but deep inside, I knew our family still had one more painful conversation waiting, because Melissa's betrayal had left behind a secret that none of us had fully understood yet. The letter. Melissa left behind the next morning. The house felt different. The birthday balloons were still hanging from the ceiling. Half-eaten cake sat on the dining table, but no one had the heart to clean anything. Daniel quietly walked into the kitchen. His eyes were red. He hadn't slept all night. Neither had I. He placed a white envelope on the table. Mom, the police found this in Melissa's purse. They said it was addressed to you. I looked at the envelope. My name, written in Melissa's handwriting. For a long moment, I couldn't bring myself to open it. Finally, I unfolded the letter. The first line made my heart sink. Margaret, if you're reading this, everything has already fallen apart, I kept reading. I know you probably hate me. Maybe you should. But I need you to know I never woke up one morning wanting to become this person. A tear rolled down my cheek. The letter continued. 3 years ago, I lost almost everything. I secretly invested money online. At first, I made a little profit. Then I lost it all. Instead of admitting the truth, I borrowed money. Then more money. Soon, I was drowning in debt. Daniel lowered his head. He had never known. Melissa had hidden everything from everyone. I continued reading. Every month I told myself, this will be the last time. I'll fix it. I'll pay everyone back. But fear became bigger than honesty. The room became silent. When I remembered your banking app was still connected to your phone, I panicked. I thought if I could erase a few notifications, no one would ever know. Then your phone rang. Everything collapsed. I stopped reading for a moment. Daniel covered his face. I should have seen she was struggling. I was so busy with work. I stopped noticing my own wife. I gently touched his arm. This isn't your fault alone. Melissa made her own choices. But pain often grows when people hide it instead of sharing it. I looked back at the final page. Please don't tell my daughter that I was only a thief. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I was weak, not heartless. And if one day she asks about me, Please, let her remember one good thing. The letter ended with only 2 words. I'm sorry. No excuses, no lies, just, I'm sorry. I slowly folded the letter. No one spoke. Outside the kitchen window, the morning sun was shining. Life was moving forward, but inside our home, we were learning something painful. One bad decision can destroy years of trust, yet understanding someone's pain doesn't erase the consequences of their actions. Daniel quietly looked at me. Mom, what do we do now? I looked toward the family photographs hanging on the wall. We tell the truth. We protect the innocent. And we make sure this family never stops talking to each other again. But just when we thought the hardest part was over, a gentle knock on the front door changed everything once again. The family that chose to heal. The knock at the front door echoed through the house. Daniel looked at me. I'll get it. When he opened the door, he froze. Standing on the porch was Ethan, the young waiter. He wasn't wearing his work uniform today. Just a simple blue shirt and a nervous smile. In his hands, he carried a small white bakery box. Daniel looked surprised. Ethan, I didn't expect to see you again. Ethan smiled politely. I almost didn't come, but I thought there was something I needed to do. Daniel stepped aside. Please, come in. Ethan walked slowly into the living room. He placed the bakery box on the table. I baked these this morning. I know yesterday wasn't exactly a celebration. So I thought, maybe your birthday deserved a better ending? I couldn't hold back my tears. This young man, who had been falsely accused, humiliated, embarrassed in front of strangers, was standing in my home, bringing me a birthday cake. I looked at him in disbelief. After everything that happened, you still wanted to come? He nodded. My grandmother always told me, if someone hurts you, don't let their mistake change your heart. I've tried to live by those words. The room fell silent. Daniel covered his face. I don't deserve your kindness. Ethan smiled gently. Maybe not, but kindness isn't earned. It's given. Those words stayed with me for the rest of my life. A few minutes later, the grandchildren slowly walked downstairs. They looked confused. One little girl walked over to me. Grandma? Is Mommy coming home? My heart broke. I knelt beside her. I gently held her little hands. Sweetheart, Mommy made a very serious mistake. But she still loves you? The little girl looked down. So, she's not a bad person. I smiled sadly. No. She made a bad choice. But one choice doesn't erase every good thing about someone. Children understand love better than adults sometimes. She quietly hugged me. I miss her. I know. So do I. Later that afternoon, Daniel called the rest of the family together. Everyone sat around the dining table, the same table where only yesterday people had shouted, accused, and judged. Daniel stood up. I want everyone to hear this. My mother was innocent. Ethan was innocent. And I was wrong. He looked around the room. From today forward, no one in this family will ever accuse another person without facts. And no one will stay silent when they know something isn't right. Everyone nodded, one by one. They apologized to Ethan, not because they had to, because they wanted to. Before leaving, Ethan looked at me. You know, my grandmother would have liked you. I smiled. I think I would have liked her too. As the front door closed, I looked around my home. The decorations were still there. The balloons had begun to lose air. The flowers were starting to wilt, but something inside this house had finally begun to bloom. Trust, forgiveness, and hope. I thought the story was finally over. I was wrong, because 1 week later, a letter arrived from the police station. Inside it was something none of us expected, something that would give this family a brand new beginning. The greatest lesson of my life. 1 week later. Life was slowly becoming quiet again. The birthday decorations were finally gone. The house felt peaceful, but every room still reminded me of the night everything changed. Then, One afternoon, a letter arrived from the police station. Daniel handed it to me. "Mom, I think you should read this." Inside was a short note. Melissa had officially confessed. She admitted she had stolen my phone, she had falsely blamed Ethan, and she accepted full responsibility for everything she had done. Attached to the letter was another handwritten note. This one was for Ethan. She apologized for destroying his reputation. She admitted he had done absolutely nothing wrong. The police explained that her confession would become part of the official case. Ethan's name would be completely cleared. When Daniel finished reading, he quietly smiled. At least, the truth will always be on record. A few days later, Daniel and I visited Ethan at the small cafe where he worked. The moment he saw us, he smiled. "I had a feeling you'd come." Daniel reached into his pocket. He handed Ethan an envelope. Inside was a recommendation letter. "I spoke with a friend. There's a management internship opening. You deserve better than what happened to you." Ethan looked shocked. "You'd really do this for me?" Daniel nodded. "I can't erase what happened, but I can choose what happens next." Tears filled Ethan's eyes. He stood up and hugged my son. Watching them, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Peace. A month later, Ethan called us. His voice was full of excitement. "I got the internship! I start next Monday." Daniel smiled proudly. "I knew you would." As for our family, healing didn't happen overnight. Trust never returns all at once. It comes back, one honest conversation, one apology, one act of kindness, at a time, every Sunday. We started having family dinners again. No phones at the table, no distractions, just conversation. Real conversation. We laughed, we shared stories, and most importantly, we listened. One evening, my youngest granddaughter climbed onto my lap. She looked at me with her big brown eyes. "Grandma, why do you always tell the truth? Even when it's hard?" I kissed her forehead. "Because lies may protect you for a moment, but the truth protects your character forever." She smiled. "I want to be like you." Those simple words meant more to me than any birthday gift ever could. Today, when I look back on my 68th birthday, I don't remember the stolen phone. I don't remember the police car. I don't even remember the accusations. I remember something much more important. I remember discovering who truly stood for honesty, who had the courage to apologize, and who chose kindness, even after being treated unfairly. Life taught me a lesson I'll never forget. The real treasure was never the phone. It was the truth. Because money can be replaced. Phones can be replaced. Even broken trust can slowly be rebuilt. But your character is something you carry for the rest of your life. So if you ever find yourself judged or falsely accused, don't let anger decide your future. Let the truth speak, because sooner or later, the truth always finds its way into the light. And when it does, you won't need to prove who you are. Your character will do it for you. The end